Family.
Ready?
It's basically The Last of Us, just with dinosaurs instead of zombies. Not really sure what I expected from this movie. 65, starring Adam Driver and Ariana Greenblatt. This is one of the many March releases that I'm getting too late, because March had a lot of movies. I've still got Creed 3, I've still got some other movies, I've got Dungeons & Dragons coming up real soon. So this one kind of just got shoved in the middle. And on paper, this movie sounds like it could be a lot of fun. It's advertised as Adam Driver versus dinosaurs. And that sounds like a perfectly fun, mindless action movie, if nothing else. I remember seeing the trailer thinking, okay, this looks like it could be a decent action movie, and even if it's bad, it can at least be some good, mindless fun. I don't think I've been more wrong about a movie in my life. This movie sucks. I cannot believe how utterly boring this movie is. I will say the one positive is that it clocks in at only about 90 minutes, so at least I didn't sit there for 2 hours being bored. I really got nothing nice to say about this movie. Prepare for a pretty annoyed rant, because I wanted to like this movie. I really wanted to like this. I had this estimated for, hey, maybe this will make the honorable mentions for top 10 for the year. Like, I always do, like, the really early estimations, and no, this is a contender for worst of the year. Now, it's not the worst of the year, because I've already sat through movies like Legion of Superheroes and Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Whether or not it's worse than Knock at the Cabin is kind of debatable, but this is bad. This is really bad. I cannot believe how bad this movie was. I like I said, I expected, even if it was bad, I'm like, okay, maybe this could be some good, mindless fun. Because it's an action movie about Adam Driver fighting dinosaurs. That sounds like a lot of fun, if nothing else. There is so little action in this movie. Again, the advertisements are basically touting as a big action movie of this one guy going toe-to-toe with a bunch of dinosaurs, and that sounds awesome. There's maybe 5 minutes of action in this movie, in the hour-and-a-half long runtime. 5 minutes. And that's not an exaggeration. And even the action we do get, it's no better than a rail shooter at an arcade. Like, dinosaurs come at him, and he shoots them standing still. Every once in a while, he uses, there's these little balls that he uses that explode. But other than that, there was, no interesting gadgets. Despite having a bunch of future tech, there was, no innovations, or I guess not innovations. There was no creativity in any of these action sequences. They were incredibly boring, and not to mention the special effects in this movie are fucking wretched. They look so bad. I mean, the artistic designs of the dinosaurs don't look too bad, but the effects are awful. They are so clearly not there, and it's really distracting. Yeah, again, this movie, I wanted to like this, but I don't know if I have anything nice to say. I will say, Adam Driver and Ariana Greenblatt, they're trying. I feel bad for Adam Driver, because his career and his reputation will be forever tainted by those shitty Star Wars films that he was involved in, and it wasn't his fault that his performance in those movies, especially in Last Jedi, wasn't very good, because he was given shit direction. He was told to be over the top and not intimidating in the slightest, and that's what he ended up being. And hell, I honestly, while I was watching this movie, there were a couple times where I actually noticed, I'm like, hey, he kind of looks like a young Han Solo here, which shows how perfectly cast he was for that role. But J.J. Abrams, Chris Terrio, and Rian Johnson had no idea what the fuck to do with him. So, and again, his performance here is good. It is good. It's not great, it's a little bit one note, but it's good. And Greenblatt does very well. She doesn't speak much English, the character doesn't. Not sure what language it's supposed to be, or maybe it's some made-up language for all I know. But she does really well. But she does really well in this role. And like I said, it's basically just a Last of Us clone, where it's a guy having to take care of a kid with instead, like I said, instead of zombies, there's a bunch of dinosaurs running around trying to kill them. And a side note, why is there a kid on this mission? He mentions that the kid, I don't remember anybody's names. I think his name is Mills and hers is something, it's like Cara or Carla, something like that. And he mentions that she's like 9 years old, even though the actress is like 15. Why is she on this mission? They never really specify what the mission was to begin with, because we get the opening of him, like, with his family, and then it cuts to, like, after the mission while they're on their way back, and they crash land. We're never really given any hints as to what the mission was supposed to be, and why is there a child on this mission? I know it says that her parents were part of this mission, but why would they bring a kid on this mission that could end up having, well, something like this happen, crash landing on an unknown planet? I guess the bond that Driver and Greenblatt have throughout the movie is fine. It's, like, I like the character, again, the actors are trying to make this garbage script work. It just doesn't, though. Apparently these are the same writers of A Quiet Place movies I've never seen, because, again, I'm not a big horror movie guy. But, this... Again, I really wanted to like this movie, and again, the plot is just straight up boring, because it's literally just going from point A to point B. And I could compare this to a movie I do actually like that's basically point A to point B, is Maze Runner: The Scorched Trials, which also you could kind of compare to Last of Us with the zombies, with the cranks. But the Scorched Trials, there was a lot of character building moments, and there was a lot of action to keep the audience entertained, even though the story was really thin. You can have a thin story and still make a great movie. Hell, the first Avengers movie is incredibly thin on story, but it's still a fun movie because you get great character interactions, you get a lot of fun action sequences, you get some great performances. This movie, you get 2 decent performances, but you don't get anything else. Like I said, the special effects are awful. The action sequences are no better than an average rail shooter at an arcade. And another problem is the pacing. It's slow as shit. It is unbelievably slow, and you can predict everything that's going to happen. There was no surprises to be had. There wasn't any decent plot twists. The only plot twist is that her parents died in the crash, and we already knew that to be the case, so I'm not sure what to make of that. Either it was poorly handled or something. I don't know. This movie's hard to talk about. I thought I was going to have a lot more to talk about with this movie, because like I've said several times already, I wanted this to be good. It looked good. I don't know whether or not the marketing team needs to be given a raise or needs to be fired, because they made this movie look like it could be a fun time. And like I said, even if it was poorly written or had a stupid story or something, at least maybe the action could have pulled through, but it doesn't. This movie is so fucking boring. And like I said with the pacing, it's slow because nothing happens throughout the majority of the movie. Like, he crash lands, and then it takes him, like, 10 minutes before he finds this kid. And a side note, the title card didn't show up until, like, 20 minutes into the movie. Like, really? But whatever. After he finds the kid, there's a solid 20 minutes of nothing. Like, they sit around for a while. Like, he tries to explain to her the situation. It's like, fine. And then they're walking around for a solid, like, 10 minutes before any dinosaurs show up. We get a really shitty action sequence. Then, again, nothing happens for another half hour. And then they get stuck in a cave where I can't see shit that's happening in this little cave sequence because it's so poorly lit, especially during the fight scene between Driver's character. And it was a smaller dinosaur that managed to find its way in there, not the big one that forced them to go further into the cave. And then, again, they find each other again, then not much he finds out the asteroid that destroyed the dinosaurs is on its way. Honestly, they never really made it clear whether or not this is a Planet of the Apes scenario, whether this is supposed to be actually prehistoric Earth, or if this is just, I think it's supposed to be a completely different planet, like the 2001 Planet of the Apes. And honestly, that's not as interesting. Had this been prehistoric Earth like I thought it was going to be and like it was advertised, I think the story would have been a little bit more interesting. And then, yeah, then they fight the T-Rex, and then the movie just kind of stops. Doesn't even really have that much of a conclusion. We don't see them get rescued. We don't, like, they fly off in the escape pod. We don't see them get rescued. We don't see them get home. We don't see any of that. The movie's just like, fuck it, we're done. You can go home. I hated this movie so much. Man, I'm gonna give it a D- because Driver and Greenblatt tried. But there was nothing they could do to save this shitty script. So, yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and yeah, I'll see you on the next one.